Hello and welcome to my channel. I understand that you are affiliated with law enforcement, and I understand that you're somewhat of an instructor. Let's just say that. And I want you to get the opportunity to understand how those of us on the other side who don't like law enforcement, to understand how we feel. So I want to reach out to the other side. This is my attempt. And your response will dictate how I try to do this going forward. So a lot of pressure, but no pressure. So I specialize in going after law enforcement officers who commit certain types of crimes, horrible crimes, heinous crimes, the kind of crimes you see right there, that S word right there. And there's a reason why I do it, but I'm going to go through a timeline with you, and I want to show you proof and evidence. Now, what you're looking at right now is a study from the Department of Justice. That will not be from the Department of Justice, but you can find this on the DOJ's website. This is from the Office of Justice Programs. Okay, to serve and pursue exploring police sexual violence against women. This was published in 1995. So that means that if this is on a federal website, and I want to show you that real quick, just so we can just all be honest here. As you can see, the little logo there, Office of Justice Programs, it's on the DOJ's website. Our federal government has known this, I mean, at least for 29 years. But actually, if you open up that study, they pull data from decades. And that's what them saying within that study, that it was hard because police unions and police departments and sheriff's departments made it very difficult for them to do that. So understand, actually, our federal government has known about this epidemic with police officers who commit these kind of crimes for over 40 years. I have whole deep dives into this. Now we're going to keep going through our timeline. And here you have from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, one officer accused of rape every week. In 2023, we're going to continue the timeline. And here in 2021, you have NPR, patterns of sexual abuse shows gaps in police disciplinary system. In 2021, I mean, do you say, would you say that my main concern about U.S. law enforcement, with there being an epidemic, would you say it is based off of just false concern? And before you answer, I want you to continue watching this pattern. And I want you to go and read this entire Washington Post article that was published in 2024, this year, in March. I want you to go read that. I want you to go read that before you give your response. Read that before you give your response, because I want you to take it in. Because if you were never aware of this before, I want you to become aware. I want you to drench yourself in it, immerse yourself in it. And you know, when you have the National Women's Law Center putting out blog posts talking about systemic problems with police and being predators, I mean, you have to admit now, it's not just me saying it. It's not just me saying it. Would you say that it's just me saying it at this point? And I get it. Some people within law enforcement, they may or may not like the ACLU. But when the ACLU is saying stuff like, hey, we got to take action to stop this type of violence with police officers, I mean, sir, did you know that whenever officers are caught, 1 in 10 of them have committed these types of crimes? Now, that sounds crazy, right? That sounds crazy. I'm going to show you some evidence a little bit later. And I understand at this point in the video the kind of facial expressions that you're probably making, but I'm going to wipe all that away in just a second. And you know, when the National Institutes of Health, when they got, studies out this, I listen, I understand you may say, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, but you can't say that what I'm saying is based on nothing. You can't say that at this point, right? And now I get it. You may not like CNN. But CNN, man, they weren't lying. This is from 2018. I mean, were they lying or were they telling the truth then? Because when you look at the actual numbers, you actually read that article, the numbers are solid. Yeah. And And brother, I gotta be honest with you. When Penn State says you got a problem, and they put hashtag Me Too, and they're saying that I'm right, I just, brother, they said this in 2020. Now, I want you to understand this is bad, and not only is it bad, but if you read some of the parts of the actual study here, they flat out say the scale of the problem is staggering. That's the word that they use, staggering. Me calls that calls that an epidemic. Call me crazy, but I think only a crazy person would look at that and go, there's no problem here. Everything's fine. Carry on, folks. This isn't a unique problem. And the problem with the blue wall of silence, and with police officers being silent and protecting others, and sheriffs protecting their deputies, and police chiefs protecting their officers, it extends to this problem, as you can see. Because 40% of officers convicted of this type of abuse against kids, they don't go to prison. They get things like community service, believe it or not. As crazy as it sounds, they get probation. You don't believe that? Tell you what, there is a police officer, ex-police officer. His name is Ronald Rawcliffe. He used to be a scout leader in New York. This man got 10 years probation after he was caught at one police department messing with a boy. He didn't get any time. He just left the department. He resigned. Then he went to another department. The first department, that was Holland Police Department. Then the next one was the Wheatland Police Department. And then Wheatland got absorbed back into Holland. And then back in Holland, in both Holland and Wheatland, he both messed with boys. And then he was caught in 2017, and he got 10 years probation. Yeah, so it's very common. And if you remember that 1 in 10 number that I brought up, well, that's based on the Henry A. Wallace Police Crime Database provided by Bowling Green State University. And that was based on the calendar years of 2005 until 2022, where you have 17,700 officers who were arrested, charged, or convicted with crimes. And 1 in 10 of those officers were charged with crimes involving SA against someone who's under the age of 18. So no, I didn't just abracadabra that number. I didn't just pull that out of nowhere. No, it was the truth. So now you're starting to get the reason why I feel the way I feel about your profession. That I don't think that many of you understand the gravity of this problem. And so you might be asking, why am I doing this? Well, you see, as a kid, I was essayed by my older brother, who's now a high school principal in South Carolina. And this sheriff and his sheriff's department covered it up. And I know this because, as you can read from this article from 2021, this is a news publication ran by the same guy who was a mistress of Nikki Haley. So as you might can tell, he has more of an incentive to tell the truth versus most people, wouldn't you say? He's talking about the Sheriff of the Year, the 2021 Sheriff of the Year, the U.S. Sheriff of the Year. If you read this whole article with all the depositions in federal court, he covered it up. He covered up what happened to little black girls in South Carolina. He's been doing that his entire career. And this is why I went on a rampage against law enforcement, because I used to work corrections. And they've now smeared me. The depth of retaliation, you don't understand, man. Anyone who's ever tried to go after Leon Lott, anyone who's ever tried to uncover this, trust me, there could be a part 2 to this. Oh, if you think this is the worst I can do, oh, trust me.